Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Liz, and today we're going to be talking about The Little Mermaid. No, not that one. We're talking about this one. This is the side of Disney they don't want you to know about. But before we get into the video, I do just want to remind you guys to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. And be sure to like this video so I know that you enjoyed it. And with that, let's get right into the video. The Little Mermaid. A fun-loving movie about a girl who falls in love with a prince and they live happily ever after. I'm sorry, what? Sacrifices? Sacrifices! We're gonna get into all of that with Hans Andersen's The Little Mermaid. Now, Disney's Little Mermaid starts off strong, with all of the fishes, merfolk, and all of Ariel's sisters all gathered together to sing for King Triton. But as we all know, Ariel gets distracted, which is when we hear the banger, "Part of your world," starts playing. Ariel being late and forgetting about the performance, as we all know, upsets Triton, which sends him on a hunt to go find her. Now, in the original series, Triton is actually rarely mentioned at all, but it's okay, because Ariel's grandmother ends up taking care of all of the sisters, along with the kingdom. Now, in the story, each sister is given a garden to look after, and they're allowed to plant whatever they want in there, and they're allowed to do whatever they want in their garden, as long as they take care of it. Now, in Ariel's garden, she only plants plants that are the color of red, and specifically flowers that resemble the sun. In the middle of her garden, she plants a big red tree with a statue of a man underneath it, which had fallen to the ocean floor after a shipwreck. In the movie The Little Mermaid, they actually made a nod to Ariel's garden by showing a scene where Ariel gives her father a gift of a little red flower on his ear. As we all know as well from the movie, by King Triton's rules, Ariel is completely forbidden from traveling to the surface. But in the original story, once a mermaid turns 15, they are allowed to come and go from the surface as they please. Now, Ariel's grandmother would oftentimes share stories of her time spent on the surface, and the youngest out of all of the sisters, Ariel, would become obsessed with hearing about these stories. And her obsession with the surface would grow more and more as her sisters over time turned 15 and would travel to the surface and come back with even more stories for her. On the day that Ariel finally turned 15, her grandmother dressed her up and gave her a gift of 8 oysters on her tail. This was a huge honor for Ariel due to the fact that typically you could only get 6 oysters. And yes, this is painful and does hurt as they're literally being clamped onto the edge of your tail. And with that, Ariel can finally make her way up to the surface. Now, just like the movie, Ariel sees a boat celebrating none other than Prince Eric, whom she cannot stop watching and gushing over from the sidelines. Get it, girl. As the night continues, a huge storm comes rushing over, but obviously Ariel doesn't even realize that it's happening because she's so busy watching her man. Eric falls into the water as the boat crashes, and Ariel ends up saving him, and she swims all night long to bring him to the shore. All the while, she's kissing him on the forehead and stroking his hair while he's unconscious, because that's not weird at all, you know? It's totally normal, totally normal. When she gets to the shore in the morning, she sees a church and assumes this is a safe area to leave him on the beach. The bells of the church start ringing and a group of girls makes their way out, and Ariel runs to hide away from them. The youngest girl out of the group of church girls sees Prince Eric and yells for help, and they all come and rush Eric into the church. And that was that. No song, no silhouette, and no ties that lead back to his savior. Ariel is left to sulk in her sadness as she now has to accept the fact that she will probably never see her love again. And she spends each day cuddling that statue in her garden as it kind of resembles the prince that she remembers. And even the plants in her garden start to grow out of control, and her garden soon turns to resemble a jungle. Now eventually she breaks down and tells one of her sisters the story of what happened with her and the prince. Now her sister, being the gossip that she is, went around and told everybody what Ariel had told her about the prince and the boat and her saving the prince. And one of her other sister's friends ended up sharing with Ariel a story of another kingdom that she had gone to about her own lost prince. So this gives Ariel the super bright idea to begin stalking the prince every single night. She would hide in a canal every night just under his balcony, just close enough to where she could watch him. And over time, she was able to get a sense of how kind he was. Now months and months and months go by, and Ariel starts to fall in love with the prince, but also everything involving humans. Their towns, their trees, how big their mountains are, and even other animals that inhabit the surface that she typically had never seen. She just simply wants to be where the people are. Now here's when she goes to the grandma to get the scoop on human lifespans. As we find out, mermaids live until the age of 300 years old, and once they die, they turn into sea foam in the ocean. She goes on to explain that humans have a much shorter lifespan, but they do have immortal souls. So eventually when they do die, they go up to a beautiful land in which Ariel will never see. But her grandma does warn her that life under the sea is much happier than life above the surface. Now of course Ariel does not care at all and begs her grandmother to share with her how she can win an immortal soul. And her grandma goes on to explain to her that she can become human only if a man should fall in love so much with you that you are worth more to him than his mother and father, and he marries you. Upon marriage, his soul will carry into yours, making two separate souls, allowing Ariel to enjoy human life. During a ball a couple days later, Ariel becomes so obsessed with the idea of being a human and seeing her prince again that she sneaks out of the ball and plans to meet the sea witch. And Ariel has to travel places no merfolk have ever been. Through whirlpools that try to swallow you whole, through vines that try to grab you as you swim by, and even through thousands of pieces of human remain from past shipwrecks that got pulled down from the same vines. Just a teensy bit more creepy than the same path Ariel has to take in the movie, just a little bit. But also like the movie, Ursula also lives in a bone hovel, although instead of it being a whale skull, it's actually made up of human skulls. In this story, Ursula has no real motivations to bring harm to Ariel, as Trident doesn't exist in this story. In the movie, the deal they made was if she was able to have true love's kiss before the sunset on the third day, she will be able to live the rest of her life as a human. If she fails, Ariel would have to become a part of Ursula's garden. Ursula takes her voice as price for her spell. In the story, Ursula says that what Ariel wants is completely and utterly stupid, but if she wants a human soul so bad, it was just her luck that she came and visited her on that day. For if not, she would have had to wait another 100 years in order to perform the spell again. Ursula also goes on to explain what exactly will happen when Ariel takes this potion. Her tail will divide and shrink into two legs, which will feel as if a sword were to be going through her tail, cutting it in half. She will become the most beautiful human ever seen and will walk more gracefully than a dancer. But every time your foot touches the ground, it will feel as if though you were walking on knives so sharp that your blood must flow. And if you're willing to suffer all of this, then I can help you. Ariel blindly agrees to this, and the witch goes on to explain, once you have a human body, you can never return as a mermaid. And if you fail to make the prince fall in love with you, marry you, and win the immortal soul, then the first morning after he is already married to another, your heart will break and you will become sea foam in the ocean. So no 3-day time limit, just a small teensy bit chance of death. Lovely. And I guess Ariel liked those odds because she gladly took the deal. However, Ariel still has to pay the witch, and what should the price be? It's her tongue. And she still agrees. And this is where things really start to tip onto the morbid side. At this point in the movie, Disney shows Ariel walking onto the shore, showing her trying to teach herself how to walk, which she obviously struggles a lot to do. And by the time Eric found her, she had already made a dress of her own. And of course you all already know what happens. He takes her back with him to the palace, where she is showered with the royal treatment. Fancy baths, fancy gowns, and is even taken on outings with the prince. Now, in the original story, Ariel first swims up to the shore and then takes the potion. And just like the witch said, it feels like a sword is slicing through her flesh. And it ends up being so painful for her that she ends up fainting, looking as if she were dead on the beach. Hours pass by and she ends up waking up to the world's worst sunburn and her prince standing right above her. Oh, and did I mention she's completely naked? Yeah, no cute shell top for her. And the prince tries to ask her questions, but given that Ursula cut out her tongue, she can't respond to any of them. So this is when the prince takes her and brings her to his castle. Once she arrives, she's given a silk dress, however she's not showered with the royal treatment, but instead treated like a slave girl. And all of the other slave girls around her are all serenading the prince, and Ariel gets a little bit of FOMO because she has no tongue, she can't sing. However, at some point, the slave girls start to dance, and this is Ariel's time to shine. She is the most beautiful dancer out of all of them, and of course the most graceful. All the while knowing that her feet are in the worst possible pain imaginable. And the prince is so delighted by her dancing that he calls her his little fondling, and he requests that she sleep on a pillow just outside of his door. In the morning, there were no fancy gowns for her. The prince had made men's clothes for her so the two could go horseback riding. As they go on to explore more and more, her feet begin to bleed so bad that other people start to notice. But she just smiles through it all and waits until the night to cool her feet in the ocean water. And her sisters swim up and visit her and share with her the pain her absence has brought upon them. And they continue to visit her every single night. And sometimes even her grandmother comes, but never ever speaks to her. And as time passes, Eric slowly falls more and more in love with her, but not as a lover, but more of a pet. And he shares with her that he's in love with the church girl that saved him. And he also likes to keep Ariel around because she kind of resembles the girl from the church. And this did not sway Ariel's feelings for him whatsoever, as she was still determined to get him to fall in love with her. And the prince does eventually have to get married, and the kingdom nearby has a beautiful princess. So he travels all the way over there just to check her out. And when the ship docks, he's finally able to meet his princess. And wouldn't you know it, she is the girl from the church. And she just happened to be at the church that day just to learn about the royal virtues. The prince then turns to Ariel and says that he is now the happiest man alive, and you will share my joy with me as I know you love me more than any other. So she kisses his hand as her heart breaks as his wedding morning spells her death. And now this is when both versions of the story start kicking into high gear. As we all know in the movie, this is when Ursula shows up with a voice that entraps Prince Eric and gets him to fall in love with her instead, having the next day set for them to be married. Ariel finds out that the girl marrying Eric is Ursula, and they do everything they can to stop the wedding. They end up breaking the shell, Ariel gets her voice back, yada yada yada. We all know how the movie ends. Bye bye Ursula, true love wins, whoop! And they all lived happily ever after. The end, but a not so happy ending for the other Ariel. Because Ariel is the prince's favorite, he lets her hold the bride's veil, and she follows the princess with her to the altar, painfully, step by step. After, they all board a wedding ship, and they all dance the night away. As the night continues, the prince and the princess turn in for the night in their, love tent. And this is when Ariel looks out to the sea, preparing herself to turn into foam. And then all of her sisters arrive to the surface, all missing their hair. As it turns out, they all traded their hair in order to save Ariel, but only if she takes a dagger that they bought from the sea witch, and before the sun rises, plunge it into the heart of the prince. When his warm blood sprays on her feet, they will turn back into a fishtail, and she will become a mermaid again. And Ariel walks up to the love tent, dagger in hand, just before dawn. She sees the princess laying on the prince's chest, and Ariel kisses the prince on the forehead, and she starts to look back and forth at the rising sun and the prince. And she knows in her heart that she cannot do it, and she throws the dagger into the sea, and the waves turned red where it fell, almost resembling blood. She gives the prince one last look, and then throws herself back into the sea, feeling herself becoming foam. But then the sun rises and she does not feel death. She sees the sun for the first time in her life, a tear. She also sees airy spirits floating around, filling the sky above her. She asks the spirits, "Where am I?" Suddenly realizing she also got her voice back. She had joined the ranks of the Daughters of the Wind because of the good deed she had done. They are spirits that have no mortal soul, but can earn them through 300 years of good deeds. Because of the sacrifices she had made, she gets another chance at winning her mortal soul, along with an extra 300 years to do it. Now the prince and the princess wake up to stare off into the sea, as they had had a gut feeling that Ariel had thrown herself into the sea the night before. Ariel's spirit kisses the bride on the forehead and smiles back at Eric. And for the rest of their lives, they will never know the sacrifice that Ariel went through for them. So that was a deep dive into the original story of The Little Mermaid. Thank you all so much for watching, and please like this video so I know you enjoyed it. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!